What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a very special treat for you guys, as I asked one of the world's leading tattooers to come in and show you guys some tips and tricks on how they lay down a solid neo-traditional tattoo. I'm sure you already know his name, and if not, you saw the thumbnail. It's none other than two-time Ink Master finalist Gian Carle, and we couldn't be more excited to have Gian here for our first tattoo tutorial takeover. Whee! This is something we wanted to do for a very long time. We are super excited, so Gian, hit it.
All right, thanks, Pony. So today, guys, I'm gonna be showing you how I do an eye and some leaves. I'm gonna show you guys a couple tips and tricks that I use to make this process go a little bit smoother and faster. I'm always thinking about how I can make things a little bit faster, not only for the canvas and for myself, but just because I think that when you go fast, things go a little bit smoother. So if you guys get anything out of this, I mean, I would love for you guys to follow us and subscribe. It's very important for the channel, and I'm sure Pony's gonna love it. I hope you guys are excited. I definitely am, so let's get started. All right, guys, first we're gonna put on the stencil. We're gonna make sure everything's nice and straight or just looking exactly where we want it. And then, as long as Tom agrees, we're gonna start. As long as he likes it, we're going for it. Let's first shave this hairy little leg over here. I'm just using a little bit of soap and water to shave him. Tom has been getting a couple tattoos. You guys probably seen it in the show before. You've seen him. He's got some test tattoos on him. He's always down for everything. I'm sure a lot of you guys are like, how do I get into that? On Tom's job. Yeah, that's a good job right there, isn't it? So I'm using prep stuff right now, and just making sure the skin is really clean so that when I stick that stencil on, it really sticks. So if you don't clean the skin really good, I mean, sometimes what would happen is you'll leave some oils behind, and when you put that stencil on, it will just fade out really quick. Really just disappears on you. So me personally, I like to clean it really good, make sure everything's nice and clean, then I throw the stencil on. And right now what I'm using for stencil is stencil stuff. I like using this stuff. Some people use other brands, and that's okay, because I mean, I think all of them are really good, but this is just what I'm used to using, and I've been using it for so many years that I'm just used to it. I think it's nice and sticky, in my opinion. As long as you don't leave it out for so long, because sometimes the bottle, I've noticed that if you have it for like a year, which some artists do, you know, they get the big bottle, you have it for almost a year, and dude, it starts getting, after like a couple months, it starts getting a little bit watery and not as sticky. So I always try to have a fresh bottle, so I just buy the small ones. Let's see how it looks a little bit twisted, because just straight is so, I feel like a little bit of an angle will make it look more dynamic. I like to press down on the center, make sure the center is nice and on there, and then I'll go for the sides. That looks cool. So now that we got the stencil all set up and ready to go, we're just gonna go ahead and start our outline. That's at least how I do it. You know, I start with all the outline, and I make sure it's nice and crisp, and then I start shading all the blacks, then I do all the colors and whatnot. So, you ready, Tom?
Yes, sir.
All right, man, let's do it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start with this outline on the leaves. Let's go ahead and do that. I like to have a bold outline in the outside of whatever shape I'm doing, and then everything in the inside, I'll do a little bit thinner outline. I like to pull my lines too, or push them towards me whenever I can. Every time I do that, I feel like my hands are a little bit steadier. You know, I can just lay them on the actual skin. I like to make sure that all my needles are in there when I'm tattooing. When I say that is sometimes you rest your machine on the side a little bit, and when you're tattooing, the needles that are hidden are just the ones on the bottom. The ones on top are not really doing anything. So I like to have my machine, you know, as 90 degrees as I can to the skin, really push in there and make sure all those needles are actually tattooing at the same time. Every time I take the needle out of the skin, I like to almost fade it out of the skin. So I'll push out really quick and I'll make sure that last point is not an actual dot. So every time I start, I'll just fade into the line, I'll just work myself into it. Get into corners with this liner just because I know I gotta get in there anyway. It is tough to do this sometimes, so just make sure you're not destroying the skin when you're doing it, you know? I've been doing it for a long time, so I kinda got an idea on how to shade with my liner, but if you're worried about it, just go in there with a regular mag and tighten everything up, you know? Make it a little bit easier. All right, I'm gonna change needles now. I'm going for, and machine too, I'm going for a 5. It's actually a loose 5. And we're gonna do a couple lines with it, not too many. Just want it to be a little bit thinner around the teardrop. All right, I'm changing needles again, and I'm going to use a Type 3. I'm gonna use this to do all the little thin lines. I'm gonna make it look nice. When I'm doing a thin, long outline, I like to get myself really tight and make sure that I'm not moving or swerving around, and then I'll go for it. And I'll move myself around just to make sure I got the right angle before I actually go ahead and do the outline. And it's really important for me to have my arms resting on the canvas or on the table or whatever you got to tattoo. The armrest is a good one too. Just because, I don't know about you, but my hands, I mean, they shake. Everybody's does. So, just to compensate for that, I like to have my hands and arms really tight and resting on something. All right, so right now what I'm doing is I just grabbed a little bit of gray wash, and that's what I'm gonna use to do the iris. Just so I get a thinner outline and it's not so, you know, bold. I'm gonna use a little bit of black for the inner veins inside of all these leaves. And I'm just gonna go quick. I'm gonna try not to stop in between. That way I don't have inconsistent lines in there. I'm just gonna try to do each vein all the way consistently through. And if you go outside of the stencil, just don't even worry about it. Just keep going. You know, that's what I do. I don't care. You know, I just try to keep it mostly inside of those lines. It's all abstract anyways, so it won't matter. If you start worrying about trying to follow that stencil so much, you'll start shaking and it'll just look all scratchy. I definitely think a lot of people overthink it. They'll start just getting all nervous because they gotta follow all these lines. And to be honest, you don't really have to follow them. Most of the stuff I'm doing, you know, it's abstract, or if it's an eye, just follow the shape kinda, but not all eyes are the same. So, I mean, if it's a little bit more squinty, just keep that flow, just keep going, you know, it's squinty now, you know, just don't worry about it. If there's anything you gotta fix it after you're done with the outline. Don't fix it as you go.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt, Gian, but I gotta give a shout out to the sponsor of this channel, Mad Rabbit. Mad Rabbit is a tattoo aftercare company that has something for everyone. Whether it's during or after a tattoo, they've got you covered. I know I use it every day, so why not give it a try? Head on over to madrabbit.com and use code PONY20 to save 20% off your entire order. All right, you can get back to it.
All right, now I'm gonna be changing my needles a little bit to mags. Just because I feel like everything's pretty outlined. I think we finished the outline pretty much. So we're going for a little bit of black shading. I like to do all my blacks first, and then I'll do the color. And then I'll do color right on top of the black. I'll throw the black first, I try to get it in soft and fast. I go in there quick. What I use is 23 mag, 25, 27s, big needles. I like to go in there quick, get as black as I can, fade it out, and then I'll go on top of everything with color. All right, so when I'm going to fill in most of the pupils I try to do it with a thick outline, and I'll fill it in with my mag, just so I don't have any holidays in between the blacks and the outline. So I try to have the outline a little bit thicker, just so I know that I got everything saturated in there. I just go in with this little mag and fill that little gap in. What I like to do sometimes is just like do my shading wherever I want it. So I fade it out from wherever I know it's gonna be black. Make sure my fade is nice and smooth, and then I'll just pack in that little gap I left. I don't know if that makes any sense, but if you guys are looking at what I'm doing, you'll see. I'll make this shade nice, and then I'll move in and I'll pack in all this black. Just so, because sometimes when I start with the black, I'll just keep going. I'll keep going and going, trying to fade it out. I just end up with this huge fade. So it just gives me a little bit more control when I'm actually tattooing. Actually, right now what I'm using is a round or curved edge mag, so it gets me the ability to get in there with my mag on its side. I just actually used the corner of it. I used the little corner and it just shades out really nice. I like doing it that way. It just makes me a little bit faster, I think. I'm constantly thinking about trying to make it faster and better. This is actually the tricky part because I want it to be shaded out from this side and I also wanted it to be shaded on this side. So it's tricky to have a double fade and it to be dark in the center. So I like to start with like my light tones, get a nice fade, and at the end I'll go in there with my blacks and make sure everything's nice and dark. So I like it to be dark underneath the eye. Now I got that all taken care of. I'll fade on this side and I'll saturate it in the middle. Now I'm just getting it really saturated where I want it to be 100% black. Making sure it's nice and even and smooth. And you'll see if you don't go really dark and saturated wherever you want it to be black, when you throw that color on top of it, you'll definitely notice that it's not gonna be as dark as you thought it was gonna be. So, you know, make sure you get those blacks wherever you want them to be, really saturated, nice and dark. So again, I'm just going really soft right now, using just the tip of my needles, just to get the fade in there. And then I'll go right up to the edge, and I'll start darkening that edge, make sure it's nice and dark. I don't like to see an outline right next to my blacks. I want it to be 100% black. So I'll go in there. And I'm dipping right now into my dark red just because I want this to be a nice burgundy, this little wrinkles that I got on the eye, around the eye. I'm not too worried about smudging them with my black at all. And I've done so many eyes that I already memorized how to shade these things, but I would 100% recommend that you have some reference next to you, or I mean, if you don't do them a lot, just make sure you got an idea of what you're doing before you start, just because it will make you faster. Again, it will make you not have to think about it twice while you're tattooing. The faster you go with the mag and fade that thing out, you'll get a nice pepper shading with it, you know? You start seeing them. You really gotta push for that. You gotta push in and just fade it out. You'll feel it and you'll hear it too. You'll hear the machine. It's almost like skipping across the skin. You'll hear that sound. You just hear like a prap, 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 prap. It feels scary. When you first start doing those, you'll definitely feel like you're scratching the skin, but as long as you got good needles, good machines, everything's good, and you're moving fast, you're gonna be fine. All right, now I'm gonna start adding color. I actually did a little bit of color with the burgundy color that we actually added in here on top of the blacks. So now I'm just gonna go with my red and go over pretty much everything. As long as you don't linger too long in one spot while you're actually doing the color packing, you should be fine to just go right over everything. I don't really hit it too hard when I'm doing the blacks. It's just in certain spots, like I said earlier, you know, when I'm really close up to lines and stuff. And I won't hit it with the color on top of that too hard. You know, I'll just hit it over the shading and everything I shaded out with the blacks. Just me doing it by steps, by doing all the blacks, then going over everything with the color. Makes it less painful, and you get it smoother. You get a smoother fade out of it. And I'll dip in with my red, I'll just dip into the colors. What I just did was I just dipped into my yellow ochre that I have there, and then a little bit on the whites. That way I get this nice paint that's not like a hot or really neon pink. I don't like those. All right, I think now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip into my Spanish Gold by World Famous. That is actually my personal color. I actually came up with that color with World Famous. I think it's the perfect old gold or just like a vintage gold. It's one of my favorite colors to use. I use it all the time. Not just because I was part of the creation of it, but because I really do believe it's a great color. I like to make sure I have it nice and saturated before I keep going. And what that means is some artists will just start doing big circles and going all the way to the tip, and then they'll do it again and again. I feel like that you're gonna get more trauma down to the skin, or it's just gonna get angrier before you get to really saturate it in there. So just go step by step, making sure it's nice and saturated, and then I keep going. But I don't do the whole leaf at once. That's what I do. I think I'm gonna have these tips of these leaves a little bit lighter, so I'm just gonna fade out into the tips of it like this, and then I'll go right over from the edge into the other color with a lighter ochre color. And this doesn't take long at all to just do a little fade of a color, and it makes it look really dynamic, and it looks like you did a nice little trick there, you know? Makes it look so cool when you got a little fade and it's not just colored in one color. I'm actually doing a little bit of gray right now, and I'm gonna do it right underneath the eyelid. Almost like a little bit of a shade. And all I did here was I went from straight ochre, I dipped into my gray wash actually. And I mixed those two up well, and it makes a little bit of a gray. And all we're really using color-wise on this tattoo is red and gold or ochre. That's pretty much all I'm using. I like a limited palette, not having a lot of colors in a tattoo. So most of the time I just use reds, browns, yellows. All right guys, so now I'm just gonna go ahead and do the whites, and I'm just gonna do the whites right underneath the lip of the eye, these circles that I got in there, and right in the tear duct, right in there. And that's pretty much gonna be it for whites. So we're almost there. Now I'm using Empire White just because I'm not in my studio right now. And honestly, it is really good. I've used it before, it's great. Even though I love using World Famous, that's pretty much all I stick to. This is a nice white. I'm using the mag right now. I'm actually using a 17 mag. It's the smallest we got right here, right now. If not, I'll probably be using a 9 mag or 7 mag, something a little bit smaller that's easier to get up in there. But it doesn't really bother me none. It's just as good. Just using the corners of the needle. And I'll go in there with a 9 round liner now. I'll make sure everything's nice and saturated, that I'm not losing anything. Remember, just because it's white doesn't mean that you gotta really punch it in there more than the other colors. It's just one of those colors you won't really see at the beginning until you give it a couple minutes, you know? So don't freak out if you use white and you can't really see it right at the moment that you're doing it. So if you just go over it and over and over it, you'll never see it. Everything will just start getting too irritated and will be tough. All right, guys, so that's it. That's how I tattoo an eye with some leaves. Hopefully my process will help you guys out in the future when you guys have to do a tattoo. If you would, guys, please give me a follow on Instagram. My Instagram is Giancarle. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called The Little Big Trip. Me and my wife are traveling around the States. We're going to different tattoo shops, visiting different friends of ours. And if you guys like this type of content, you might like my Instagram and my YouTube channel. There's also a different project that we're working on. It's called Sedation Lounge. And in there you can get a pain-free tattoo. We got a whole roster of different artists that you can choose from. And if you guys want to get a painless tattoo, you want to go right under and get tattooed by some of the best tattooers out there, sedationlounge.com. And I got a lot of information there for you guys, and you guys can go check it out. Hopefully I get to see you again. This was a lot of fun. Don't forget to give Pony a follow. I mean, don't be stingy with your likes. They really do help. So, guys, thank you for coming. I'll see you guys soon.